Hi, I'm Patrick and welcome back to North Kiteboarding HQ. So today we're going to be showing you how to swap out the Depower Main Line and multi-board tubing on the Navigator Control System. So to do the job you're going to need a 2.5mm Allen key, a 3mm Allen key, some nice sharp scissors, half the length of strong line, the Depower Main Line and multi-board tubing spare part itself, a standard leash that comes with your Navigator Control System and the control system itself. So start by unwinding your lines. Now disconnect the landing line by pulling it out through the bottom of the connect quick release until you can see the loop-to-loop connection between your grey front line and the landing line. If the landing line is slightly tricky to pull out from the connect quick release, it's because it could be twisted. This happens if you're looping a lot in the same direction and you don't unwind it between sessions or during sessions, so make sure you always do that. And if you untwist it, it'll make it nice and easy to pull out. So when you can see the loop-to-loop connection, you'll find that it's quite tight. So the best way to do it is to push the two lines together until it loosens up the connection and then pull it apart like this. So take that off like that and then set that landing line aside for use later on. Now you're going to pull the grey front line up through the quick release, up through the multi-board tubing and out the top of the cleat. Grab the 3mm Allen key and undo the screw and spinning handle. Take the screw out and put that aside for later on. Next, wiggle the two halves of the spinning handle so the quick release is separated, and then put that aside for use later on. Check all lines are clear from the area and then get your scissors and we're going to cut the Depower Main Line and multi-board tubing. Remove the cut half of the Depower Main Line from the top of the cleat base. Undo the loop-to-loop between the cut section of the Depower Main Line and the end of the elasticized trim line. And remove that, and you can discard that. Take off the power bracket. Take the elasticized trim line out of the cleat. Take the cut section of the multi-board tubing out of the cleat base as well. So next, grab the 2.5mm Allen key and undo the grub screw in the side of the cleat stopper ball. Here you'll notice there's a small piece of plastic. This is something that they use during the initial factory setup, and this can be taken off and discarded as well. There's also a piece of grey mark cloth. If this becomes loose, you can also take this off. Next, we need to pull the figure-of-8 knot out the top of the trim handle. And then we're going to undo the figure-of-8 knot. You'll find this is quite tight. So now pull the trim handle off the end of the elasticized trim line. Now this bit can be quite tricky. You've got to pull the cleat stopper ball back off the end of the elasticized trim line. Place all these parts aside for use later on. Now we're going to reassemble the Depower Main Line and multi-board tubing onto the control bar. To do that you need the control bar, the cleat, the 1/2 meter strong line, the elasticized trim line and the new Depower Main Line and multi-board tubing spare part. Thread the Depower Main Line multi-board tubing through the centerpiece of the control bar. Then take the 1/2 meter strong line and thread that through the loops on the end of the Depower Main Line. Now take the cleat. There's two bores in the cleat base. The end of the Depower Main Line needs to run through the bore that's closest to the cleat itself. So there's a bore here and a bore here. The one at the bottom is to the landing line and the one that runs all the way through here is for the Depower Main Line. So thread the end of the line through the bore that runs closest to the cleat. So you'll see that pop out just underneath the cleat. Then tie a nice strong knot. And thread the looped end of the elasticized trim line over that knot. So now anchor your standard leash to a nice strong anchor point that can take your body weight, and then hook the strong line, the loop that you've just tied, onto the carabiner. And now, as I said before, make sure the alignment is correct between your cleat and the multi-bore tubing. Now pull the cleat down onto the multi-bore tubing, making sure the alignment's correct, and make sure it's in the end of the cleat, and with some weight, pull on it until both loops of the Depower Main Line are coming out of the bore closest to the cleat. Here. Now pull the loop of the elasticized trim line down over both the loops on the end of the Depower Main Line. Now take the end of the elasticized trim line with the mark cloth on it and thread that through both loops on the end of the Depower Main Line. Before you pull the loop-to-loop connection tight, just make sure everything here is straight and there's no twists in it. So when you're happy with that, pull the connection tight, release the cleat so that the tension comes onto the loop-to-loop connection. The next step is to carefully cut away the strong line from the loop-to-loop connection at the top of the Depower Main Line. Get the power bracket and thread the end of the elasticized trim line through the hole in the bottom of the power bracket. And for this step, the alignment is really important. When you're looking at the cleat with the cleat facing upwards, the landing line should be running down the left-hand side like this. So when you're sure that's correct, thread the end of the elasticized trim line through the cleat. Check the alignment. Now thread the cleat stopper ball back onto the end of the elasticized trim line. Then take the trim handle and thread that onto the end of the elasticized trim line as well. And above the join here, we're going to tie a figure-of-8 knot. And this should be located just above the join on the end of the elasticized trim line. Pull that tight. Now pull the trim handle to hide the figure-of-8 knot. Make sure that holds nicely. Then slide the cleat stopper ball around 2 centimeters away from the bottom of the trim handle. Then reinsert the grub screw using the 2.5mm Allen key. With the tapered end facing towards the cleat, otherwise this could cause damage to the cleat stopper ball. It's not orientated correctly. Just make sure this is tight enough so that the cleat stopper ball can't slide anywhere. Next, re-thread the landing line down through the multi-bore tubing. And just double check that everything's running free here and there's no tangles. Then take the connect quick release and thread the end of the landing line through that and reinsert the bottom spinning handle onto the top spinning handle so we can put our screw back in using the 3mm Allen key. Then we're going to reinstall the loop-to-loop connection between the grey front line and the landing line. And pull this really tight so that this knot can run freely inside the motherboard tubing. Next, from above the cleat, pull the grey front line until the leash stopper ball rests up against the bottom of the Connect quick release. So after you've replaced any part on your Navigator control system, we recommend that you perform some checks on land before you hit the water. So run your lines and connect the red and green line connectors to a nice strong fixed anchor point that can take your body weight. Then get rigged up as if you were going to go for a ride and just check a few things on your control system. So the first thing you'll notice is that your Depower Main Line and multi-board tubing is now slightly coiled. This is because it's a pre-tension part, so after 1 or 2 sessions this will straighten itself back up again. Next, just check some things are working correctly. So first, the trim system, check that's holding nicely. Check the power bracket, so the landing line should be running down the left-hand side of the power bracket. Then just check your line lengths are correct. So the standard factory setting is that there should be a 2 cm gap between the top of the spinning handle and the centerpiece on your control bar. If this isn't correct, that's easily fixed. You can do that by removing the bar width adjusters from the bar ends, and then you'll find the Lark's Head connection options here, so you can adjust the line lengths there to make sure you get that 2 cm gap right. Just make sure that you make the same adjustments on both ends of the bar, and make sure you've got the plus and minus width adjusters in the same direction. Just use your body weight just to apply some weight onto the system and make sure nothing's slipping. And then finally, just do some dummy quick releases. Hold the carabiner on your leash and then just release and make sure everything's sliding nicely. So do that a couple of times and make sure everything's working well on your quick release system. That's the replacement of the Depower Main Line motherboard tubing. Thanks a lot for watching.